Hey everybody, this is Petey from the Spin Rack, and today I am doing something that many have done before me. Many have done it better, but I found an angle that I could hit you guys with that hasn't been done. Well, if it has been done, it's been done as lightly. Now this was during Alan Moore's return to the mainstream, albeit Image Comics, which was brought to you by Jim Valentino. And through Jim Valentino bringing him for 1963, he got brought in to do a Spawn issue, then Violator, Bad Rock, Wildcats. There was Spawn Blood Feud. What else was there? There's I think there's Legends of the Shadowhawk. What else? There was a bunch of stuff more. There was blood, and Alan was also, we were seeing some of Alan's layouts on Violator and on Blood Feud. And what else did he have out there? Then we had Supreme, Youngblood, and while he was doing these projects, before the cliffhanger thing happened, and doing something with Wildstorm, Alan Moore talked about doing this project called the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Now, in my mind, the League got its name from a Simon and Kirby thing. Let me see if I can find that. I should have had it already out, but this is me working backwards, right? Let's see. Keep going. But as we're going through this, damn it, I blew it. First I'd heard anything like that, and that's the same. It could be another source. The closest I heard was in the Fighting American, the League of Handsome Devils. And I wanted to bring that up because it's something I want to reference in talking about this book, right? So this would be Alan Moore taking, he said, hey, there's a lot of characters. In one of these interviews, I should be able to find it somewhere here. There's all of this stuff that's in the public domain, right? These are public domain characters, and we can kind of tie them together and kind of do a series, right, of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, right? So I'm just kind of paraphrasing because I don't have the interview in front of me, but I should have tried to find it before I did this. But this was, to me, the project I was waiting for. Now, I bought, as I can explain to you, most of the titles. This was one of the ones. Now, these aren't, I don't know, sure what happened to the ones I had downstairs, but I rebought these recently. And it was interesting to read because when I first read them, I kind of had the feeling like I was still not sure why they worked together, right? And I couldn't put my finger on it. And I kept saying to myself, the book needs an Avengers moment, like a moment where they all put their hands into the circle like the Fantastic Four and say, you know, let's be a group. Well, so I'm using up all these 5 minutes just to kind of talk to you about other things. Now, this would follow the format that we've seen in comic books before. Right? It'd say it would have its storytelling from literature. Now, this framework that Alan Moore is using actually comes from stuff that writers were doing. I think there's the Wold Newton Universe by Philip Jose Farmer, and he did a bunch of books where he was tying a bunch of historical characters together into one universe, and this would follow that sort of same thing, but this would have a lot of comic books, dare I say, tropes in it. You know, I've been, it's like my kryptonite. And let's see, well, because the Marvel kind of took this framework from the Justice League, right? Because no one really looks at this issue, right? And in this issue, they all get the call. They get this call to come together, right? So we had Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Batman can't get the call, Green Lantern gets the call, Flash gets the call, and they all come together as a group, right? Martian Manhunter, don't want to slight him. They all get together as a group from this call, and then they handle business as the Justice League, right? And this was a thing that influenced The Fantastic Four, the framework would be used for the Avengers, but that instead of having this call, the call would come out from the teenage heroes. Then the call would come out from the Professor Xavier. And as you went along, heroes would get together for certain different reasons. But regretfully, I have to mention that the guys who did their first government-sanctioned heroes, like they were already government-sanctioned heroes, but when they made it like this is how you make superheroes, the government has to sanction them, was Heroes Reborn, with Jim Lee with the Fantastic Four connecting them to Nick Fury, and then what's the name? Then I think Rob Liefeld also had the Avengers, and Jim Valentino. We can't forget Jim Valentino was a writer connecting the Avengers to Nick Fury, right? So that is kind of this framework. So this framework that's in here to bring these guys together are the same thing, right? So let's kind of go through it. I only think we can get through 3 of these issues, because this is pretty dense, right? So we're going to try. And in seeing this, I think in my mind, I had only seen a couple things that Kevin O'Neill had done, so I was kind of iffy on it. And this had a kind of Trencher, a Keith Giffen character. So the artwork is really has like almost a painting quality, like my lack of art terms. There's a little like a flatness to it, but it still was kind of action packed and fun. So I kind of held my reservations to the side, right? So all the characters wouldn't be here. This would be a build-up for over these 6 issues of gathering these literary figures and joining them together. And when I get to the end, I'm going to explain to you, storytelling-wise, maybe this isn't the best framework. This is why I said they needed an Avengers moment, right? But it's an incredible series. It's a lot of fun. It starts off with Campion Bond, right? He's here. He's a government operative, right? And he has Mina Murray here, right? And she goes by, he calls her Mina Murray, and she calls herself Mina Harker. Oh, maybe, yeah, it is Mina Marker. I don't know why I mixed that up. They call her Miss Murray, right? So she gets enlisted too, and this is like, it's just some gorgeous stuff. So when I saw it and it was a little bit open, I was like, okay, it has the steampunk feel, but they're not killing you with the steampunk stuff. All the stuff is in the extreme wides, right? So they meet up, and basically she puts her in a task to find someone. And it also has kind of it has the British wit to it, but it has that kind of, not bickering, but kind of the insults that you'd see in a Marvel comic. So this kind of but it has a very British tone to it, so it works. You won't really recognize it as something Stan Lee would do, but it kind of has that feel, right? So she set off on this mission, and she finds Alan Quartermain. She's from, obviously, Mina Murray is from the Bram Stoker's Dracula, right? We got Alan Quartermain, right? He found him in this opium den, right? In Cairo, and he's barely awake. He's a phantom of himself. She needs her help, but this is one time of many where Mina, who's a woman, takes charge as a woman, gets attacked. She immediately gets attacked. I think some of the other people said she almost got Alan Moored. I won't use other people's joke, but I'll post their link because that'll give you all the literary connections. I can't give you any of that stuff. I'm sorry, but I'm going to give you a connection to superhero comics, right? So, and at least I gave you the Wold Newton universe, right? So as she is about to get accosted, Alan Quartermain, who's a hero, comes in, shoots these guys, but of course, somehow this other guy with the knife gets a drop on him and attacks and is about to kill him, even though he had the gun. and Mina. So they have Mina do something. So it's done. Alan is such a, the writing itself and the dialogue is so much fun. You kind of forget that he should have shot this guy too. I don't know how this guy got the drop on him, right? But I guess since he slowed down because of his opium struggles, with Mina finishes him off, and they're gonna go back to Britain, right? And they're waiting, but we see all these people. They're about to come get these guys, right? And the Nautilus comes, right? And we have Captain Nemo, and this, I think, from the second book he was in. He was listed as a East Indian, so that would define his look. Now, and he comes, and he's been enlisted also, right? Now, out of the group so far, out of these three, there's one hero here who's Alan Quartermain, but he's kind of a shadow of himself. Mina is a person who, when we last saw her in the book, or for me, the movie, she was bitten. We didn't know if her time would come or not, but she doesn't seem to be struggling with the sun, so she hasn't become a vampire. And he comes, has some weapons on his ship, takes out some people, and he breaks away. Takes them in the Nautilus. Now, the little I know, this is where the characters are starting to shift from the books, right? Because Captain Nemo, I think the first thing he says is, one of the things he says when he takes on, I forget the characters that they bring on to the book, but they're kind of the heroes and Nemo's the villain. And Nemo says no one leaves the Nautilus, right? They basically should be stuck here. But basically he's kind of science officer / chauffeur. It's used for defense, and that we don't get to see that guy, that really rough guy from the novel. Now, that's from my little knowledge of it. I know that that's at least something that should be addressed, in the fact that now he's working for but there's another element in Alan Moore's stories is everything you know is a lie. So it's probably propaganda. It's hinted in here. We didn't really know those characters. These are the real characters, right? There were some things that were reported that aren't actually true. And so he's kind of enlisted. But that's where I would hint to you in these books, like Mina's husband, the characters that get stuck, get saved by Captain Nemo in 20,000 Leagues in the Sea. Those characters are the ones that would be the heroes, but they would kind of be boring. So you would pick out the cool guys. Captain Nemo, we know we're getting Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. It was already announced that the Invisible Man was coming in here. So one of the questions I would have is, well, why are they going to stay together? I don't really know, right? So they get there. Alan Quartermain is drying out. It's taking them a while, but they both would notice that, they're kind of insulting him here. And this is where I say you get kind of that sort of that Marvel kind of thing that's here, but in the British tone, so it works perfectly, right? So they get back, and they get they're in Paris, and they're here for some murders, and this is right up what's the name? Right up Alan Moore's alley, because he wrote From Hell, so it could be like tying into, it's Paris, I'm not sure with that, but it's tying into, not tying exactly, but similar in tone to what was going on in From Hell. So they're here to find someone else or indoor stop whoever's abducting and killing people, right? So their idea is to, of course, there's a lot of crazy sex stuff going on here. Have Mina dress up. Why not? Right? So this will be a double cost for Mina in this possibility, right? But the person they run into, he's another character from a book, which I don't know, so I can't add that to you. So, right? So they're doing a stakeout. Somehow they lose Mina. And then next thing you know, we see something, a window break, right? And what's her name? She's accosted. She thought she could handle him, but it didn't work out. And they think it was Henry, and they don't know. Obviously, they've been chasing Henry, and they finally catch with Henry, but Henry isn't home. It's Edward. Now, this is where we get on to full Marvel, right? Because if you know the Jekyll and Hyde book, I think when we last see Mr. Hyde, he said, oh, he's almost dwarf size, I think, when he died, right? So it's kind of wacky that he'd become the Incredible Hulk. But you always need a Hulk, right? Just like the Avengers movie, right? So, we're 16 minutes in. That's only the first issue, right? So it's going to get raunchy. It's going to be, so Mina's been accosted 2 times here